Many ages passed. The first tribe of the Urukus, the Gentilak, had multiplied and thrived in the Arragoa. The goblins, too, had grown in number, and had laid down many foundations near their father's workshop. What was once a single hut with a furnace was the start of the first goblin city of Gob, a sprawling grid of houses and workshops that mocked and defied the chaotic disorder of that which the Wetlanders called the Wastes. And was to this city that the Wetlanders came, not to raid or pillage, but to beseech. For a great evil had come from even deeper in the Arragoa, to where even Urukus dare not explore, the Alarabi. Theirs was a cruel people, a race of towering giants with massive third eye at the center of their heads. They could scorch the earth with a gaze that pierced even the strongest armor. Their skin turned blades with ease, and their arms could shatter walls of a fortress with a mighty swing. The Alarabi tortured and killed without purpose. They burned and stole and maimed out of sheer hatred and spite of all that was not them. It was as though they gained some sort of supernatural power from destroying all that the other mortal races struggled to accomplish. The Manvas sent their chief of chiefs, a mighty painted man with a body made for war, clad in the furs and hides of countless hunts and conquests. He threw his axe to the ground in an act of submission, and prostrated himself to one knee, asking,
"Gob the craftsman, I come on behalf of many races. My people, the Manvas, have made many friends, and I cannot stand watching them be eaten one by one, while I am helpless to save them. The Tartalo, the Angsho, the Ode, all of them live only in the songs we carry in our hearts. Now they threaten the Canis, the dog-headed companions that were the oldest and strongest of our coterie. Gob the Builder, I implore ye on behalf of many races, stand together with us against this living typhoon."
The Dverg sent their high king, dressed in a motley assemblage of metals and stones, as though he were the earth itself. He had his serfs bring forward a crate of the purest iron that Gob had ever seen. At his word, the servants laid themselves on the ground in submission, while he took a knee.
"Gob the Hidden Scholar, I speak for my fathers and my fathers' fathers, and the many families of Dverg lords. The Arragoa cave in our tunnels, and thrash our soldiers into slag. Even our greatest weapons, forged by our most legendary craftsmen, are not enough to destroy their horde. A single Dverg champion is the labor of a smith's lifetime, combined with a warrior's lifetime of study. We have not the numbers to stem this tide before it sweeps us away. I bring you iron from the heart of Gaia itself to once more build a race, one where every man and woman is capable of shattering apart anything that stands in their way. It is not easily that the Dverg begs favor, but for the sake of the future, please, build us a man that can stop these monsters."
And even the proud, haughty she sent forward representative, an androgyne scholar clad in many colors of silk, whose wisdom and mastery of the self crackled the very air around them with sparks of magic. Their eyes were both focused and clouded, as though they saw into things that were and would be, and things that never happened. The she did not kneel, as there is a limit to what even they can bring themselves to do, but they debased themselves in their eyes with a low, sweeping bow.
Gob the schemer, thief of 1,000 secrets, self-made man who built a civilization from nothing. I speak for the people whom the future will call Beltraven's people. Long have I, and many like me, stared into the roads that we may follow, and often we have struggled to push kings and tyrants on the world to the golden path. We are rapidly arriving at a crossroads, one that decides many fates beyond what a mortal can hope to comprehend. My compatriots throw bones into the fires, and read the stars in the sky, and it all ends in the Alarabi consuming everything we have worked for. But you? Gob the Wild Man, Gob who can pull victory from the jaws of defeat, you offer a detour from this dark, inevitable path. I implore you, build us a bridge of fate, one that may span the maw of oblivion. My generations of knowledge are at your disposal, Secret Keeper.
And in the races of mortals, Gob saw a reflection of where his Arragoa once were. Suddenly, the society that pushed him away was being pushed away by an even bigger threat. And thus he set aside his indignation at the sudden change of his fate, and he set to work one last time. To the Urukus he sent word of a threat, and his bronze tribe came to the aid of the Manvas and their countless allies. They could not stop the approaching Triclopian monsters, but their sturdy alloyed bodies were more than capable of limitless punishment. Again and again, the Urukus and their unlikely allies would meet the Alarabi and battle them to a stalemate, buying the craftsmen a little more time. And to the Shi he requested their mystics beseech the gods on his behalf. He needed to create another race with great endurance, and could not afford the time or resources he'd used to make the others. So he called out to Shugar, the god whom the Shi called Zephane, whom the hurricanes could not blow over. He asked,
Shugar, whom the Shi calls Zephane, the great teacher through agony. I need your blessing to build a race capable of destroying the Alarabi. Send me an avatar, so that I may challenge you to a test of endurance to show my worthiness.
Zephane of the Lash took note. This was the man who had bested Bashaba, who had been worthy of Sordos's attention. Even without his help, Gob had managed to build a mighty and durable people worthy of admiration, even to his cruel high standards. And thus, Zephane sent down a mortal form to accept the challenge. Gob had the Dverg bring out 2 cauldrons big enough for a man, and stoked mighty fires beneath them. Gob and the avatar of Shugar, the cruel master, would boil themselves alive and see who could endure longer. And so, the 2 of them boiled alive, the avatar remaining silent while Gob gurgled and screamed in agony. He was, after all, still Arragoa, and had no supernatural immunity or endurance or even pain threshold. But what he did have was strength of will, and an understanding of the consequences of failure and the necessity of success, and a few more clever tricks. After many long hours, a Dverg noticed the Avatar had silently lost consciousness and sank into the boiling pot, marking Gob the winner. The Prince of Pain regained strength and consciousness almost immediately upon exiting the cauldron, having a supernatural healing rate. He asked,
Before I grant this blessing, how did you, a mere mortal, survive such damage?
To this, Gob emptied his pockets of the various spent stems and roots. He had used what Bashaba had accidentally taught him, and filled his pockets with arrowroot, monk's hood, and powdered wolf femur. As he boiled alive, Gob forced himself to drink the very mixture that was killing him, and thus constantly being pushed back and forward along the edge of death. This moved Zephane, and the avatar of the great sadist granted Gob his 3rd blessing. From his 3rd blessing, Gob and his goblings sculpted a new, colossal creature, one made from the iron dug out of Gaia's heart, a mortal with muscles that could pulverize mountains, and with a stomach that could stoke the mighty inner fires necessary to make iron mobile. This creature was a shapeless giant, neither man nor woman, all raw form and no refinement. Gob lashed mighty chains to the iron creature's arms and legs, and with the help of his goblings, the Dverg, and Zephane's avatar, he tore his child into 2 children. Again, they lashed mighty chains, and tore the creatures to pieces, until they had a small group of iron beings that were the size of other mortals. Gob then grasped his masterful tongs and pulled the iron into a more refined shape, giving them faces and features and sexes and sentience. The goblings piled a large mound of earth atop the burning hot men of iron to cool and temper them until they were strong enough to burst forth from the ground. These iron warriors would come to be called Ogrins, from the old Orcish word for iron, and each one of them a born destroyer. When all had seemed lost at the front of battle, the Ogrins charged to the fray, their silvery naked forms shining radiant in the hot sun. They grasped the Alarabi with their bare hands, and ripped and teared and shredded them to tiny pieces. Fist punched straight through flesh, snapping adamant bone and emerging from the other side in a spray of blood and gore. Their iron flesh was being quenched in the blood of their first enemy, and began to rust under the strain. But Gob was a clever craftsman, and he had made their iron into a special alloy that could rust evenly into a protective layer of red. The Ogrins were so strong that when the Alarabi's ghosts left their mortal shell, they gripped them tight and began shredding the ghosts, ripping their ethereal pieces into many fragments to blow away on etheric winds. Legends say the mutilated ghosts of the Alarabi still drift to the wastes, looking for weakened hosts to fill with their limitless hatred of all life. When your shaman sees their ghostly bodies flock around the wounded, he will call on you to threaten them, and remind them of your readiness to rip them apart again and again, until not even dust remains.